NFL free agency has officially begun. But for the Miami Dolphins, it was all radio silence until it wasn't. The moment Monday night rolled around, Miami pulled off something no one saw coming. A contract agreement with quarterback Zack Wilson. Zack Wilson. Let that sink in for a second. Why? What's the move here? Is this a simple depth signing? Or does it hint at something bigger? Is Miami preparing for an injury contingency? Or are they hedging their bets on Tua Tagovailoa? And if so, why? Because let's be real, Wilson's track record as a starter is questionable at best. If this is just an insurance policy, fine. But if the Dolphins see something more in him, then we've got a real conversation on our hands. But before anyone could even digest that move, Miami doubled down in the trenches. First, it was James Daniels, a solid interior lineman coming over from Pittsburgh. Then came Larry Borom, a swing tackle from Chicago. These weren't splashy, headline-grabbing additions, but they were absolutely necessary. The offensive line was a problem last season: injuries, inconsistency, and breakdowns at the worst possible moments. Tua took too many hits. The run game lacked push at times. These signings, they help. But do they fix the problem? That's the real question. And then, just as quickly, the losses started rolling in. The biggest gut punch? Jevon Holland. Miami didn't use the franchise tag on him, and by all accounts, he won't be returning. That's massive. Holland wasn't just another piece on the defense. He was the leader of the secondary, the guy who held things together, a playmaker with range, instincts, and a knack for showing up when it mattered. Losing him? That stings. And it leaves Miami scrambling for answers at a position that was already thin. Then came the news that Raheem Mostert was out. Just like that, Miami's most reliable running back, the guy who consistently delivered in big moments, was shown the door. Look, the Dolphins have options in the backfield, but does anyone believe they're better off without Mostert? That's a tough sell. At least there was some positive news. Miami placed a right of first refusal tender on Kader Kohou, meaning, if another team makes him an offer, the Dolphins can match it. But let's not sugarcoat things. This isn't exactly a resounding commitment. Kohou has been one of Miami's best stories, an undrafted gem who carved out a role for himself in the secondary. Letting him walk would be yet another hit to a defense that's already taking its share of losses. And of course, there's the salary cap elephant in the room. The Dolphins are walking a tightrope financially. They're not broke, but they're not exactly flush with cash either. Every move they make has to be calculated. That's why they restructured Bradley Chubb's contract, to free up some much-needed space. But was it enough? Because right now, there are still glaring holes on this roster, and they don't have the luxury of just throwing money at every problem. Finally, some good news. The NFL announced compensatory picks, and Miami landed 4 of them. The highest. 3rd round, 98th overall. That bumps the total number of Dolphins draft picks to 11. Plenty of ammunition to work with. Now here's where it gets interesting. Do the Dolphins stay put and use all these picks? Or do they start packaging them together, making moves to target specific players? Because make no mistake, this team still has needs. Safety, offensive line depth, maybe even another edge rusher. The draft could be where they fill those gaps. But can they afford to wait that long? Miami quietly re-signed Quentin Bell on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. Not a headline move, but depth is always important. That means the Dolphins now have Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Cameron Good, and Bell in the edge rushing room. On paper, that's solid. But then there's the name that refuses to go away, Joey Bosa. Reports are swirling that Miami has made an offer in the $10 million range for the Chargers' edge rusher. That sounds nice, but let's be honest. Do the Dolphins really have the financial flexibility to pull this off? The 49ers do. And if you're Joey Bosa, wouldn't it make more sense to go join your brother, Nick, in San Francisco? It's a storyline that won't go away, but unless something changes, it feels like Miami is more of a long shot than a frontrunner. Back to that massive void at safety. Miami made a move. Ifeatu Melifonwu is in. The 25-year-old ex-Detroit Lion has 37 games played and 14 starts under his belt. A 1-year, $4 million deal. Solid move, but is he a full-time solution or just a stopgap? Miami also retained Elijah Campbell for 1 year at $1.9 million. Again, depth, continuity, special teams help. But that's not what the Dolphins really need. They need someone who can replace Holland, and so far, that answer isn't on the roster.